On the board this week, we've got creatures described as a scaly man who hates watermills, a beautiful lady with just the one leg, and a tall, snowy woman who wants you to hug her totally real child. So come, pull up a stool at Creature Tavern. Welcome in. As the tempered crawl of winter slowly makes its way into your bones, let me warm them right up with tales of creatures from under the fresh sheets in reality's bedroom under the stairs. We'll start today with tales of the Vodyanoy from Slavic folklore. Vodyanoy translates to he from the water, or watery in Russian. Also goes by Dedushka Vodyanoy, meaning water grandfather. Vodniak in Czech and Slavic, and Wasserman in German sources. This creature is a water spirit by all measures, and with a look that shifts across the stories. However, there's two traits that remain consistent, those of human and aquatic. His usual appearance is that of a naked old man with a fat, pot-bellied paunch and a swollen face. Sometimes folks add a bald head to that visual pick and mix. Other accounts agree he's naked, but covered in a thick layer of pond slime, and wearing a high bower hat, which is a classic fur hat worn by Russian nobility in the 15th century. But unlike those, this hat is made of green club rush. That's a watergrass you can find pretty much anywhere on the globe. And he's got the belt to match. Other descriptions give him green hair and a long green beard that's said to turn white as the moon wanes. Or in different accounts, he's got that slime coating, but there's weed draped down his form, and his skin is covered in scales. In some lore, the Vodyanoy is written as, and I quote, quite black, with enormous red eyes, and a nose as long as a fisherman's boat. And that's far from the only description you'll find when digging into this wet wonder. Other records say it's human-faced, with huge toes, paws instead of hands, long horns are fixed to its forehead, it's got a tail, and still those signature scarlet eyes, burning like red-hot coals in the fire. One vivid portrait provides us with a callback to his naked pensioner form, pairing that with a swampy beard, long green hair, a face twinned with the frogs. Algae and mud cling to his black fish-scaled skin, paws and plays her hands again, but this time they're webbed. A similar fish tail, and those same scorching, cool, bright eyes. There are milder versions too, that call him nothing more than a regular man, but marked by gills, webbed hands, and algae-coloured skin. To summarise these traits, we have an account from the 19th century ethnographer Maximov Sergei, and he describes the Vodyanoy in human form, with long toes, paws instead of hands, two fair-length horns protruding from the expected spot on his head, a tail, and eyes burning like red-hot coal. You can see why this creature is a difficult one to identify, but from all these accounts, I reckon we can pick out a few constants. Humanoid in shape. Paws seem to come up quite a bit. A fishtail. And eyes that burn like hot coals. You'll find Vodyanoy all across Russia. They're said to dwell in wetlands, especially in large depressions left by retreating glaciers known as kettle holes. They're also known to frequent ponds, lakes, and the swirling whirlpools of rivers. Within these biomes, look for watermills. It's said Vodyanoy have a peculiar interest in these structures. Vodyanoy are skillful shapeshifters, a talent used to explain his many documented forms. And it's not just human shapes he can take. Lore says he can utilise this marvellous method of mutation to appear as overgrown grass, a man in a red shirt, a naked woman, a pig, a large fish, a giant moss-covered fish, a log, or even a flying tree trunk, complete with tiny wings that's said to be seen skimming the water's surface. By night he crawls ashore to quietly comb his grime-slick green hair, unless the moon's light is particularly bright. Then you're said to hear him all along the shore, slapping the water with his open palm. Lore also states he's immortal, but not in the ordinary sense. He has two states: aging like a mortal creature, then rejuvenating, entering and exiting these cycles with the phases of the moon. Habit-wise, he's kind of a pain, if I'm honest, holding a rather strong focus on humans. He's not fond of them at all, preferring to play pranks, set traps, or simply outright attack them. The books say he uses coloured ribbons, tying them to grass as lures to draw humans near his waters before snatching them, dragging them down to his underwater dwelling for them to serve as slaves. If you're caught in his waters, he will risk attacking you, and it's thought that any physical damage found on a drowned body is often considered the result of a beating from a Vodyanoy. As our friend Maximov Sergei puts it, the ill will of the Vodyanoy towards people, the evil character of this demon, is expressed in the fact that he tirelessly watches every person who, for any reason, enters his damp domains. He carries away to his underground rooms, forever, everyone who takes it into their head to swim in his rivers and lakes in the summer, after sunset, or at noon or at midnight. To add to that, I also found that if you're caught in his waters on a holy day, or without making the sign of the cross, immediately marks yourself target for his wrath. After you're caught, if you're not immediately turned into a slave, you'll join his collection of trapped souls. The body will be cast aside as your essence is locked in a porcelain container known as a vodnik pot. Or sometimes it's just a teapot. It's said the more pots a Vodyanoy holds, the more powerful they are. Lore also states this soggy monster takes a wife or wives, typically water nymphs or drowned human women, giving you a third outcome if you meet the criteria. When angered, the Vodyanoy will break dams, tear down watermills, and drown people and livestock. You can see this in the many reports from Lake Liman in Novograd Oblast, Russia, detailing Vodyanoy's love for tampering with or completely wrecking water structures. Yet they also warn fishermen of impending floods, though the law states that's rare, and only when they're in a good mood. To help improve Vodyanoy's mood, fishermen, millers, and of course beekeepers are said to make sacrifices to appease them. Another reason for these sacrifices was the belief that Vodyanoy own all fish and aquatic creatures, and they could use this control in delivering fish to those they deemed worthy. In sticking with the fish theme, they're also known to ride a well's catfish as a mount, and if they catch a farmer leading their cattle or horses through its shallows, a Vodyanoy will pounce on one and ride them until they drop dead. The cattle and the horses, not the farmer from what I can tell. In a surprising twist to the legend, Vodyanoy are said to foretell the coming harvest. To do this, folks say one will take a trip to the local village, disguised as a human. If you have a keen eye, you'll see the edge of his coat is visibly wet. Other than that, this villager looks like any other. If he buys grains at a high price, it forewarns a spike in the price, likely due to crop failure. But if he buys it cheap, the bread will remain cheap. And curiously, amid these soaking spirits stands a ruler, appropriately named the Tsar Vodyanoy, described as an old man armed with a club. And he's capable of rising to the skies, sat atop a black cloud, where he can remold the geography of the land, creating new rivers and lakes at his will. And I'll be honest here, I couldn't find where to put this last point, but I definitely had to include it. Law states that Vodyanoy enjoy playing cards and smoking, notably through a wooden pipe. Now thankfully Law's canny rich and had a handle encounter with a Vodyanoy. He has everything I was able to cobble together. If you're erecting your own watermill and you'd rather it not be destroyed, I reckon you know you'll need to make a sacrifice. Well, here's all the acceptable offerings. Pigs, cows, sheep, chickens, or if you haven't got any livestock handy, humans will do in a pinch. If you're a fisher and you're looking for a bountiful harvest, but you haven't the stomach for sacrifice, then offerings of melted butter and oil poured directly into the river, or placing a pinch of tobacco on the water's surface, will work just as well. This reward will also be bestowed if you return a child caught in your net. Not sure why you wouldn't, but now you've got an incentive. For you beekeepers out there, the law says that bagging the season's first swarm of bees and sacrificing them in the water would make a Vodyanoy bless you with a bounty of honey. Offering bread, porridge, or salt by leaving it on the shoreline or tossing it into the water works well as a sign of goodwill and respect. Just to help keep one on your good side. If you fancy a dip in the resident Vodyanoy's waters, make the sign of the cross over the water, then over yourself, and drape a cross around your neck while you're at it. Doing so will help ward you from a negative encounter. Not wearing a cross or making the sign before entering is bad, as told by our knowledgeable friend, Sergei. He says the Vodyanoy, at the speed of lightning, carries away into the depths all who have forgotten, when immersed in the water, to cross themselves with the sign of the cross. With special triumph and pleasure, he drowns those who do not wear body crosses at all, forget them at home, or take them off their necks before swimming. In Ukraine, children were also instructed to chant a certain rhyme before going bathing or swimming in the creature's waters. It took a while to find this. I do hope I've got the correct one here, but here's the English translation. Chortuk, chortuk, don't break my bones. You're from the water, and I'm going into the water. Also, if a friend or family member has had their soul trapped in a porcelain pot, you can free them by diving down into the watery den and lifting the lid. It won't return to the body, that's long gone, but it will rise to the surface as a bubble, now free to move on. To help with battling one, the books say they're most vulnerable on land, with some sources saying they've got no powers, beyond that one of disguise. They're said to be virtually invincible in the water, so when you're on their turf, I wouldn't try anything. Lastly, if you just like to be left alone, some records say Vodyanoy hibernate during the winter, so don't worry about danger during a cold dip. Now while you're mulling over your winter swimming plans, I'm going to toss a couple more logs on the fire. Hello there, listener. Welcome back to this audible box outside of the Tavernscape. I'm your host, the Tavernkeeper, and thanks for listening to episode 27 of Creature Tavern. As always, it's pretty good making these, and hopefully you like the direction it's going to be taking in the coming weeks, months, who knows these days. As always, if you post about the show using the hashtag CreatureTavern on X or Blue Sky, there's a chance you could be part of that change by appearing in the show. You could end up a porcelain golem, perhaps formed through the method where they break things and then they put it back together with the gold. I don't remember, but that could be you in golem form. Or perhaps you'd be the chef at the tavern. Regardless of how you feature in the story, you'll be able to stick it to everyone at your next school reunion as your name featured on what totally real people have called the next best up-and-coming audio show. To make sure as many of your old and new mates hear of this breakout moment for yourself, why not give us a share on social media? It works a treat. But why stop there? Get creative. Paint our logo on the side of your car and dress your grandma up as the name Creature Tavern somehow and parade around the town. It all helps. Now I'm starting to see some cracks in this container of audiblicity, so it's probably time for me to get going. Before that, let's get you back to the tavern. There we are. Reckon that'll work to warm you for at least one more creature feature. So let's crack on with tales of the Patasola from Columbian folklore. Her name means singlefoot. Broken down, you've got pata, which equals foot, and sola, meaning single or only in Spanish. She's also known simply as single leg, and is described in lore as a female jungle monster. Her origins vary, but each version ends in betrayal, expulsion, and death. In one telling, she's a mother who kills her only son and is banished to the woods as punishment. In another, she's described as a wicked temptress, cruel to both men and women, and for this reason, she's mutilated with an axe. One leg's chopped off and thrown into a fire. Without proper care, she ends up dying from these injuries, but returns, now haunting the forests and mountains where this cruelty took place. A third account calls her an unfaithful wife who cheated with the couple's employer. Upon discovering her infidelity, the jealous husband murders them both. Whatever path you choose to believe, the lady dies. She departs the physical realm, but the shadow of her soul clings on, manifesting forevermore as the single-legged seductress known as Patasola. The Patasola can take a couple forms. In her true state, though, she's the silhouette of demon. Said to have a single breast, bulging eyes, fangs right from a cat's mouth, a hooked nose, big lips, and of course that single leg. But where you'd expect human flesh and foot, you'll find a bovine-like appendage, ending in a hoof. This female phantom is said to frequent South America's high mountain range, virgin forests, and dense jungle-like wilds. Keeping to where the trees knit tight, she rarely strides into the open, instead moving along the margins, watching from the tangle's rim till a target's selected. Lore says the Patasola operates as what I'd describe as a predatory guardian. On one side of her coin, she's a custodian of nature and the forest animals. On the other side, she's an unforgiving force, targeting any human that dare enter her domain to alter or destroy it. According to the tattered scripts I could find, Patasola is a nocturnal creature, appearing to male hunters, loggers, miners, millers, really any lone man in the wild whose thoughts drift to the female form. In these situations, the Patasola begins her hunt, and her first move is deception. She'll manifest as an enchanting, seductive woman, often in the likeness of a loved one. And yes, before you ask, she does have 2 legs here. From the wild's edge, she'll attempt to lure her victim away from his companions, leading him deep into the jungle. And once isolated, the man's fate is sealed. In what could be described as a loose benefit, you will at least get to see your personal reaper as the Patasola drops her glamour, revealing her true, hideous, one-legged form before beginning her attack. Said to be intimate and vampire-like, as using her feline fangs, she proceeds to devour the man's flesh and suck every last drop of blood from his wriggling body. Not necessarily in that order. Beyond seduction and ambush, the Patasola employs a spot of mischief, interfering with the activities of man. But only if you're in a forest. She's not a complete monster after all. Folks say she's been known to block shortcuts through the jungle, disorientate hunters, and interrupt hunts by throwing dogs off the scent of their game. A surprising fact I found was that despite possessing only the 1 leg, the Patasola moves like a dog at dinner time. It's a speed that makes escape unlikely. Earlier I treated you to a glimpse of this single-legged spectre's powers of metamorphosis. You know she's able to shape into a beautiful woman, but she can also transform into animals, most commonly materializing as a large black dog or cow. Though I'm not sure how common a large cow is in the jungle. That might be a bit of a giveaway. And when pleased with her peaceful domain, or appeased after a successful hunt, it's said the Patasola expresses her triumph from on high, climbing to the top of a tree or mountain to sing. As recorded by Columbian historian Javier Ocampo Lopez. The song goes, "I'm more than the siren. I live alone in the world, and no one can resist me. Because I am the Patasola, on the road, at home, on the mountain and the river, in the air and in the clouds. All that exists is mine." When it comes to defense against this beautiful jungle vampire, law's a little thin. But I did manage to find a few tips and tricks to guide an encounter. First and foremost, treat the jungle with respect. Her lust for human flesh partially comes from humans' destructive nature. So if you're ever in the jungle, don't tear it up. And steer clear of those that do. This one may seem a little obvious to you, but it's still worth a mention. Do not wander off into a packed tangle of trees at night just because you've been beckoned by a charming lady. Even if you reckon you know her. That could not be more of a trap. Lastly, I found one record that says dogs can sense her presence. So keep an eye on your pooch, and if they start acting in a manner you ain't seen before, it could mean Patasola's standing at the jungle's rim, and her eyes have fallen on you. Now, speaking of falling, I see a few coal logs have tipped out the hearth hole. I best sort that before it gets a little too hot in here. Welcome back, listener, to my beckoning space. The world is collapsed in on itself, and it seems we're stuck here with each other. Unless, of course, you go ahead and hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening to us. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere volume voles make their burrows. Just go ahead and search for Creature Tavern. And once you're out of this question of physics, why not write a few words about your time here? How amazing it was, how hypnotic the audio is, other good things. It's all great for the show, I've heard, but I haven't seen the stats behind that. Now I think that's all the improv I've got left in me, so before I begin rambling about something entirely unrelated, I best get myself away. And we best get you back to the tavern. Thank the might of Gilgamesh that this place is stone-floored, or we'd be in a right mess. Now as the fire winds down, I'd say we've got just enough warmth left for one last tale. Let's go with the Yuki-onna from Japanese folklore. Yuki-onna, we might know her by Snow Woman, is the personification of cold, with as many names as you'll find snowflakes. We've got Yuki Musumi, meaning Snow Daughter, Yuki Haime, Snow Princess, Yuki Onago, meaning Snow Girl, Yuki Joro, Snow Woman, Yuki Anessa, meaning Snow Sis, Yuki Onba, meaning Snow Granny or Snow Nanny, Yuki Inba, meaning Snow Hag, and Yuki Furibaba, meaning Snowfall Witch. Almost fell over on the last one. This frost fiend first appears in a collection of writings from the 15th century by poet Sugoi, and she's often taken for a spectre due to her pale complexion, though she's most definitely the yokai of snow and winter. I couldn't nail down the exact source of her origins. It seems her nature comes as 3 stories. One tells of her as a snow entity. Another says she's the returned soul of a woman who perished after falling over in the snow. And in a more celestial turn, she's a princess of the moon world who descended to Earth with the snowfall in order to escape a boring life, only to find she was unable to return. Locked to our domain, she now appears on snowy moonlit nights. The writer Yamoke Genrin added that Yuki-onna are born from snow, reasoning that where there was a lot of something, a living form would come forth. Originally, people considered Yuki-onna pure evil, all the way up until the 18th century, when she was recast as more human, becoming a struggling cocktail of many complex emotions, beautiful and serene, yet ruthless in killing unsuspecting mortals. In appearance, Yuki-onna is set as a tall, beautiful woman with long black hair and blue lips, inhumanly pale, sometimes said to be transparent, her skin allowing her to blend into the snowy landscape. Some say she's draped in a stunningly white kimono, though other legends describe her as completely nude, with only her face and hair standing out against the snow. Some tales say she had no feet, and in one account, from the city of Ojiwa, it's thought she may be made entirely of ice. The story tells of a beautiful woman, reluctant to take a bath, finally enters the water after a period of thought, only to vanish immediately, leaving behind only thin, fragmented floating icicles. You'll most likely encounter Yuki-onna during winter nights across all of Japan's snowy regions. I'd suggest checking out the Toku area, Niigata, Yamagata, Akita, as well as the highlands of Nagano. I'd say they're your go-tos, especially if there's a blizzard raging through. Behaviour-wise, Yuki-onna arrive only on nights when snow is falling, or by some law, only after the snow has settled on the ground. She's said to move as if weightless, gliding over the freshly laid pillows of cold without leaving a trace. And many say this is why she never leaves any footprints, instead of the no feet theory. Her touch is knife cold, and a single look from her can unnerve even the surliest of souls. When surprised or startled, she can unthread herself into a cloud of mist, powdered snow, or twist into a whirling column of icy air and vanish into the gale. Her favourite hunt is where winter traps the living. Under the disorientating chaos of a blizzard, it's here where she blows her icy breath onto the lost until they lie still as a frost-covered corpse. Or she'll lead them astray, turning them off the path and letting the cold finish what she started. Some folks say she can ride the wind across thresholds, blowing down doors to kill those sleeping inside. Though some tellings insist she cannot cross a vestibule unless invited. And it ain't just her wind and cold you should fear. A simple conversation can have devastating consequences with this frozen phantom. Answer her poorly and the price is immediate. For those who meet her gaze and exchange words are eaten. And should someone ignore her call or turn their back, they'll suffer too. Admittedly a far more agreeable fate. They'll simply be shoved down into a snowy valley. A favourite snare of hers involves a child she occasionally carries, known as Yukinko. During whiteout nights, she stands hugging the kid, begging passerbys to hug it as well. And when a kind soul agrees, they'll begin to feel the child grow heavier and heavier until the weight is unbearable. Then as they collapse to the ground, they'll be buried in snow and freeze to death. It doesn't sound great, but refuse, and she'll hurl you into another snowy valley. In other versions, she's holding the child without bothering passerbys for a hug. It's all rather innocent, till you know her prey. Desperate parents who've lost their child in a violent blizzard. When one approaches the Yuki-onna, a wash of relief is felt over them, thinking this is their missing child. Unfortunately, that isn't the case. Instead, they'll be frozen in place as soon as the child enters their embrace. Her attention to children extends to the calendar. On Koshugatsu, also known as Little New Year, a Japanese holiday on January 15th that marks the end of the New Year celebrations, she's said to lead them away to play in a field, drawing them from their families. And in Oshika, during periods of light snow, lore says she comes while waving a white wand and chanting Kurigose, Yugose, which I believe translates to give me ice, give me hot water. And it's thought that if you splash her with water, she'll bulge, and if the water's hot, she'll disappear. But how does she fuel herself? All this murdering kidnapping is hungry work after all. Well, the stories give us a few of her favourite meals. Some say she takes the livers of children. Others call her vampiric, drinking the blood of her victims or siphoning off their vitality. Even found one account claiming she's succubus-like, draining or freezing weak-willed men with sex or a kiss. And yet even in these stark tales, all hope is not lost, as Yuki-onna can fall in love with the very person she had marked as prey, allowing them their freedom. Yuki-onna are incredibly powerful creatures, the embodiment of cold, and more than happy to prove it. But there are a few ways to fend one off and leave an encounter with a regular body temperature and maybe a little gold. To avoid the child getting heavier, you can follow what a warrior from Hirosaka did. He was asked to hug this child by a Yuki-onna, so he did. All while secretly holding a short sword known as a tanto in his mouth. With the sharp end close to the child's head, this somehow prevented the weight increase, saving the warrior from a chilling end, and when he handed the child back, the ghoul gave him many treasures as thanks for hugging the child. Guessing she didn't clock the knife. If you haven't got a tanto blade handy, but maybe you've been hitting the gym. It's also said that those who are able to withstand the ever-increasing weight, lasting all the way through, would acquire great physical strength as a reward. I also found one story about a person who treated a Yuki-onna with kindness on a blizzard night. This simple act didn't just leave them unharmed, it caused the Yuki-onna to turn into gold the next morning. I briefly mentioned earlier that Yuki-onna have a softer side. She sometimes lets her would-be victims go for various reasons. In one popular Yuki-onna legend, she sets a young boy free because of his beauty and age, only requiring him to promise never to speak of her to anyone. Unfortunately for the boy, later in life he did just that. He tells his story to his wife, who reveals herself to be that very same Yuki-onna. Turns out things didn't end too badly though, as this time she simply scolded him for breaking his promise, sparing him once more. This time, out of concern for their children, leaving him with a warning that if he dares mistreat their children, she will return with no mercy. Luckily, the story goes on to say that the man is a loving father, so if you happen to charm a Yuki-onna, keep your mouth shut and work as hard as you can to be a right good dad. On the same lines as that legend, I found one telling that said Yuki-onna melt once their husband discovers their true nature. So maybe you'll get off completely scot-free. And with that, we're finished with our last creature for the week. We've learned that dropping a little butter in a pond might save you from a lifetime in a jar. If you see a woman in the jungle, double check the legs. And if you're ever asked to hold a child when it's snowing, make sure you've got a dagger handy. Now that bell means it's last call here at Creature Tavern. So grab yourself one more drink for the road. And until next time, tread carefully out there. You never know when you might wander into the weird.